Hey, thank you so much, my people. Welcome. This is Milton Semogele, your modest farmer. I told you modest farming is a science, or like farming in general is actually a science. And being a science, that means it must follow certain principles. And if you don't follow those principles, chances are high you are bound to fail. And in modest farming, we say that farming is 10% sweat and 90% strategy. Otherwise, if you strategize properly, following those principles, 90% is strategy and 10% sweat. So there is big room for people to fail when they resort to labor-intensive farming. They lose a lot. They need to spend more time planning, more time strategizing, more time meeting with themselves. So a modest farmer needs time as a person to plan, to strategize, and to make sure he succeeds successfully. And one of those principles of modest farming is scale and size. We straight away define the boundaries of a modest farmer. A modest farmer is one who farms between 1 and 5 acres or under 2 hectares. Above that, you are entering a high-risk zone, commercial farming, and all the problems that come with it. When you have scale and size, the focus should focus more on depth other than width. The depth of your care in that small acreages is more important than having 10 acres which are being neglected. And the second principle which must be followed as a modest farmer is financial sovereignty. Many times, all modest farmers are using their own resources, their own savings to fund their ventures, their farming ventures. So it is advisable and very important that a modest farmer stays within budget, uses the resources he has at the time, incrementally, small, and develops his own farm, because he is developing a venture, not for today, not for tomorrow, but for the future, pension style. So whatever you save today, you're saving it for the future. It is your pension. That's why modest farmer is majorly more on agroforestry farming, where you plant once and live for many years because you're planting pension. Another principle of modest farming, which must be anchored in, is long-term vision. With modest farming, you are not farming for today. You have to have a vision for the future. We think ahead. We think tomorrow. We don't plant perishable things which last 3 months. Yes, it's good to plant 3 months, but that also has its own problems. It gives you a lot of sweat because you don't have a budget. So the best option is to plant things which are going to redeem your time, to give you a modest life where you enjoy farming and don't stress or sweat with farming. So you should have long-term vision. That's why we look at crops, high-value crops which last 25, 30, 50, 100 years going forward. And among those strategic cash crops is has avocado, coffee, cocoa, we have macadamia, we have cashew nuts. Those long-term cash crops or agroforestry crops which will give you between 7 and 10 years to split into production. But when they start, there is no stopping until 50, 100 years. Another pillar which must be anchored in by modest farmers is the management agility. Because we're using modest farming, getting modest earnings, our modest earnings to fund our modest ventures. We don't spend money. We don't want to have running costs in our farms. We spend on tasks as they come. What that means or what that entails is that you should not have a manager. You have 1-2 acres. Why should you have a manager? You are the manager. You only need maybe a supervisor of a task which will last 1, 2, 3 days. And once that task is over, the supervisor's work is out. Don't spend too much on overhead costs or salaries. That's why you have a task wage model of payments at our farms. Not because we don't want to give people money, but we are not yet into production. At a time when we have reached full-scale production, we have reached 5 acres. Yes, that is now optimal production. We can now maybe think of having a full-time manager, because now we have the funds which are being generated by the farm itself to fund and run the farm. So, modest farming is anchored on those 5 major pillars and principles. So, my dear, if you're planning to engage into farming this year 2026 and onwards, kindly consider modest farming. It is the best farming model, the best modest mindset model. You need to have a modest mindset model that you start a farm which is not only going to survive but thrive. Thank you so much. Goodbye. And if this has been beneficial to you, kindly subscribe, share, like, and comment, and let me know which of those 5 pillars you are implementing in your farm, in your